Welcome to Did You Know the Heart of It, a short podcast from Gloria Deo Academy. In each episode, we unpack the heart behind our schools, practices, and philosophies so we can grow together in our shared mission to raise lifelong worshipers, lifelong learners, and lifelong servants. Whether you're driving, folding laundry, or catching a quiet moment, we're glad you're here. Today, we're talking about grades, what they communicate, what they can never define, and how we as parents can help our children see themselves through the lens of the gospel rather than a report card. Let's explore how grades can be a tool for growth without becoming the measure of identity. And we have Miss Playford here with us today, Dean of Culture, to discuss this topic with us.
Yes,
Hi, Miss Playford.
Hi, how are you?
Doing good. I'm happy to have you on here again. I always enjoy our conversations. And so let's start off by just practically speaking. What are grades designed to communicate in our school setting?
So I think that's a great question. It's hard to answer without a history of what designs were originally designed to communicate. So historically,
I think grades were originally designed to...
Right. Grades themselves, historically, if we think about like the Industrial Revolution and institutionalization of education, grades were a quantifier, right? They stratified. They helped, if you think about that factory model of education, right, where there's a product at the end.
We were labeling and grouping and sending them out.
Yep. Right, exactly. Into the workforce or,
Yep.
Exactly. And so grades were initially utilized in order to quantify, as a product. Is this a product that is fit? And so for us, it's tricky when we deal with grades because the end of education for us is not that factory model, right? We want virtue. We want wisdom.
Even when we say lifelong learners, we don't expect our students to be fully done and like a fully cooked, cake or something out of the oven when they graduate. It just doesn't work like that. And we know that,
right?
Even as parents, that some things I'm just going to be praying for my kids for a long time.
Yes, exactly.
Well past childhood.
Exactly. And we also know that wisdom is very hard to quantify, right? The important things, the heart growth, it's really hard to measure.
Yeah.
And so
So those are some things that, you mentioned wisdom and the heart growth that, grades can't fully capture about a child's learning and their character and growth.
Right.
Yeah.
So we begrudgingly use grades because it is the language that institutions, higher learning institutions in America use. So we can't just throw, all grading systems out the window. So what does it look like to redeem something that was originally for a different purpose, right? And so that's what we try to do here. So if we think about grades as a communication tool, right? In each class, students have a goal of learning, and the grade is simply meant to communicate to the parents the mastery. And even that's a difficult word, right? It's a bit subjective because it's really
the understanding,
right?
Academic progress and understanding.
Yes.
I like to think of grades as a co-teacher. I'm a mom, my kids in grammar school, doing the co-teacher days, that grades are nothing more than just a conversation between their teacher in the classroom and me as the co-teacher at home.
Right.
Where we're providing each other feedback. When I grade something at home and have my student make corrections and I send that paper back to the teacher at school, the teacher knows where my student is struggling, what their strengths and weaknesses are in writing or math, and vice versa. When I receive papers back home from the teacher, it's that ongoing conversation about my child's academic progress, at least. And then our teachers use other forms to communicate with us about character progress, character growth, right? But in this episode, we're talking about grades. And so I always love coming back to it's just a conversation about where our kids are at.
And it's a limited conversation, right? Grades are a single data point.
Right. It doesn't touch how are they on the playground? How are they at recess with friends? Are they obeying in music class? And all of the other things that come with our children's growth.
Right.
We want to see.
We're educating the whole child, right?
Yeah.
But grades only give us a small portion of that. That's actually why in the upper school, we don't retest. We don't give extra credit assignments because if grades are really a communication tool, then to retest and give extra credit, we're not giving information that's helpful,
Okay.
right? We might give inflated information.
Yes. Okay, so no retesting, no extra credit. It's just that we're just checking in to see how this student's academic progress is.
Right. Because the identity is not based on grades, right? Like we're not defining a student by the grade that they got. We're just communicating something to the parent. Hey, they really struggled in this assignment. They need some extra time or effort, or maybe time with a teacher. They need some help here.
I love that you mentioned identity, that it's not their identity. And I think that, and you being a mom too, all of us go through that. I think in the first years of doing this collaborative education, we all have to overcome, even as a mom, it being some of our identity.
For
My
sure.
child is struggling, and that's somehow a reflection of my identity, or, and whether it's memory work or any of the subjects. And so I know we speak into that a lot with armor bearers as well, just that that's not part of our identity.
Right.
As parents. But we also don't want that to be the case for our students either. So how can parents guard against kind of that mindset in their homes?
Yeah, we talk so much about how education is caught, not taught, right? At home, how our emotions about grades speak volumes. They speak a lot louder often than our
own facial expression.
Right.
We respond to what gets brought home in the red binders.
Exactly. And I mean, if we think about grades as a single data point, as communication about, a learning of an individual thing, and then we expect our students to always perform well. Like if we're disappointed by lower grades, there's an unspoken message there that you must succeed in all things.
Or perfection.
Right.
For our love. And that is not ever what we want to communicate.
Right.
Being careful of how we respond and react to grades. A lot of times it may be having a conversation with your student about asking them questions. Hey, what do you think happened here? Did you have enough time to prepare? Was there something that maybe we could have done together before that? But also acknowledging and praising their effort. Right. I think is really important.
Yeah, I think paying attention to what we praise is hugely important.
More effort than a grade number.
Right.
Yeah.
Or even growth.
Yeah.
Are you okay? Can you say to your child, like, it's okay. A C this is good because you worked so hard for this C. Like it was difficult and you didn't give up.
Didn't give up. Yeah.
Right. You kept going. Or, as they begin to get older, you asked for help.
Yes.
You sought out your community. You didn't do it in your own strength. Like those are the things we want to be putting our focus and attention on versus just a quantifiable number.
I love that advice. So making sure we're praising the right things, being careful of our own responses. Well, in a classical Christian model, we often talk about students being made in the image of God. How should this truth shape the way parents and students view grades and academic performance? We've touched on this a little bit, but I wanted to see if you wanted to expand a little bit.
Yeah, I think anytime we think about image of God, we have to remember that we were made for a purpose, right? Ultimately, our being, our existence is in Him. And so academics in general also have their purpose in Him. And we can make it the first thing when it's really just a tool to shape our hearts towards Christ and who He made us to be. So I think that just remembering that there is an end goal and purpose to all that we do. I think when we talk about being made in the image of God, we think about that command that He gave in Genesis of be fruitful and multiply and cultivate the earth, right? Like we are more that farm idea of education, right? We are growing and cultivating and we want to see flourishing. And academics is really a small part of that. And
a small part of the image of
right,
God.
Exactly. And we just need to make sure that we don't make it a first thing.
Any other advice you'd like to give parents regarding talking to their kids about grades?
Yeah, so I would see grades as an extrinsic motivator, right? It's an outside tool, but it's not really going to be effective to motivate their hearts. And so when you're talking about grades, I mean, practically in the little ages, like for my kids especially, standardized testing, I don't give them their scores.
Oh no,
That's information for me. Right. Yeah. I don't want them to base their identity on that. I have a student who struggles pretty difficult with attention, right? But he's super creative. And so we talk about like, this is hard for you, but it actually serves you in other ways. And so I think if you can focus on the growth versus the grade in every little aspect, like, so say your student on a memory test just really, maybe got like 50, like only half of it they had memorized, but then the next time they get 60,
there is growth.
We celebrate that, right? Because it's the growth we're celebrating, not the grade.
I love that phrase, though. It's about the growth over the grade. And if we as parents can keep that in mind, just really helping to disciple our children in their hearts that they are made in the image of God.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
So we started this conversation kind of talking about grades and where they came from the Industrial Revolution, and when public education became more of a factory model for getting a desired outcome from the public.
Right.
And that's not what we want to use grades for here. That is not what they mean. That's not how we don't use them. We do want to use them as a communication tool, and we want to make sure we're responding to our kids positively. We are really focusing on that growth over the grade, like you said. And I think this will be really encouraging to our parents. Thanks so much for sitting down with me today and jumping into this conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We know that finding a school that partners in discipling your child without compromising your family's values can feel overwhelming. Gloria Deo Academy offers a collaborative, classical Christian education where your child can authentically live out their faith and thrive academically and spiritually. Find out more at www.gda.academy. Thanks for listening.